Today we're outside beautiful Clarksville, Georgia at TeXga Farms with my friends Caroline and Kyle Lewallen, the owners of TeXga. Tell us a little bit about the farm.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you today. We raise beef and pork here in Northeast Georgia to serve customers that are across the state of Georgia. We also love the opportunity to stock whole freezers, so with half and whole animals, and we work with a couple of restaurants.
All right. Well, I've certainly used your product and appreciate it, and it's wonderful. I know everybody in the area loves it. Tell us a little bit about both of your backgrounds.
Yeah, so I actually grew up on a small farm about an hour from here that my dad was raised on. My grandfather had a couple head of cattle when he left the military. So it was always kind of a family hobby for me. My brother and I, we showed livestock growing up. And so raising a steer to enjoy a good hamburger or ribeye was something I have always been familiar with and passionate about.
Yeah, I had a little bit less of a traditional approach for me. I grew up in Austin, Texas, and hadn't been exposed to agriculture in a meaningful way, really. But what I did enjoy and what I was good at was being able to cook the finished product. So when I was in college, I actually started a barbecue catering business that existed to be able to. Primarily, we focused on doing catering events for other student organizations, fraternities, sororities, parents' weekends, things like that. And that ballooned into a barbecue food truck. And then through that, I had an appreciation for high quality proteins because that's what we were using day in and day out. And then being able to arrive at a place where now we're able to raise cattle and be able to provide those proteins for our family and for other families, it's really satisfying.
What was the name of your food truck?
It was Lou's Barbecue.
Lou's Barbecue.
Yes.
Nice. Do you miss those days?
I think back on them fondly, but I don't think that I miss them.
Good brisket for us now is a Sunday school class comes over, good friends from out of town come over. He'll bring those recipes back out.
There
Yeah, now we just get to cook for family and friends and less
right.
pressure
That's
there.
right.
So you met in school,
Yeah.
and then you ended up back in Georgia. So where were you before you started the farm?
Yeah, so I was doing marketing for a produce farm in Northeast Georgia. We got married in 2015, and the city boy moved to Georgia, or to Northeast rural Georgia, and Kyle always said, I want to own a piece of property that I can drive a four-wheeler and not stop.
Yeah.
But then the way that his business mind works, he moved another small business to Georgia at the time. We sold the food truck business to a good friend or to his manager. And the wheels started spinning on, well, if we had a piece of property, what could we do with it? Could we combine our passions? What would we name it? And had the opportunity to purchase the property we're sitting on today in 2017, and had the idea, can we marry some passions of marketing, telling stories about food, trust your farmer, know your farmer, what about barbecue? And that's really when this idea of TeXga was born.
Mm-hmm.
So it was obviously something y'all were both wanted to do, a common goal. You're both interested in it. But what was that first thing that inspired you both to leave your other careers and do this full time?
Yeah.
I think it was the sense that, hey, there's traction here, there's a need, we're meeting a need, but it's never going to grow past a certain point until it gets our full attention, right? There's a ceiling there if it's a side hustle. There's a ceiling there if it's something that is on the side or this other thing that we're working on, and it really required our full attention to get it to where it is today, and for it to be able to be something that is able to sustain and be able to continue to grow. But that was really it. It was that realization that, hey, until it gets our full attention, there's a ceiling here. And that was that moment.
Yeah.
So you both leave your other jobs, essentially. You say we're going to put all our full attention on this. You get it going. What are some of those first obstacles you remember? that you weren't
Yeah.
expecting?
So we had been doing the farm and running our meat business for about a year and a half before I stepped away from my full-time marketing position in January of 2020. It is not a surprise to the world what happened in March when the world shut down, so to speak, with COVID-19. And so fortunately for us, the groundwork of our business had already been formed. We had meat in the freezer. But we always kind of like to say that it's a good thing and a challenge at the same time that COVID really put the gas on our business in terms of speeding it up, speeding that business model, business plan up a little bit. And so fortunately, I was home and I had the opportunity to fill those orders and to serve those customers at a distance, if you will, back then. But that's when those doors opened for us to really begin welcoming customers to the farm. We weren't shipping yet, but that was definitely a interesting challenge right off the bat. 2 months after leaving that comfort of the paycheck, if you will, and jumping head first. I'm not much of a risk taker. I know as entrepreneurs, we always talk about what risks are you willing to take? When should you take them? Oh, I should have taken it a year ago, those kind of things. But COVID really opened up the door opportunity to really focus on what we thought our customer base was. It approved the concept, so to speak, and just opened up those doors for us to serve people with premium beef.
And it also started to change purchasing patterns, right?
Yeah.
So we started to look at, what the average order size looked like. And then we had folks that, who had never asked about buying a half beef or a whole beef, all of a sudden started asking those questions, because they liked being able to know that they had a consistent supply of beef in their freezer. And it was just interesting watching some of the purchasing habits start to change and evolve through some of those times of uncertainty.
Well, it's interesting timing. I know it was probably scary at the time, but it was a little bit fortunate that you were available full-time to take it on. So once you got past that, was there a moment where you remember it really clicked and you're like, okay, even though we were passionate about this, even though I know a lot about raising beef, but you really felt like it started falling into place?
I mean, it clicked for us once we sold the first group that we raised. And we talk about proving concepts, and I'm a to-doer, and I got to check that off the list, and that brings me, I guess, satisfaction to know that I've served my family well, I've served our customers well. But we started with 12 head of steers. And we called them the dirty dozen if they got out of the fence or someone left the gate open. And they were the 12 disciples if it was a good day, so to speak. Not that anyone wants to enjoy the 12 disciples on their dinner plate, but that was a little bit of a joke for us. But when those first 12 were out of our freezer, and we were able to hear from customers and know that they were making dinner table memories with their families, whether it's with their kids or with their parents, whomever it is, but they're making dinner table memories. We can get people to sit around their dinner table. Who has time to do that anymore? We can share recipes with them, because you can raise quality meat, but if you don't know how to cook it, that's a little bit of a game changer, right? And so when those stories started rolling in and the freezer was empty for the time being, it was like, okay, this is going to work. We can do this. And that's when the planning for the future had already started, but that's when it really started steamrolling of, okay, this is more than a Saturday job now, right? And where can this go? Do we need more land? Who can we work with? And that's when those conversations really started.
Well, talk to me a little bit just about the process in raising the beef and the cattle, just for our viewers that are uncertain about how that works. Just tell me what y'all's process is, what the time frame is.
And so for us, what we do is typically when calves come to us, they're relatively recently weaned, which means they're no longer getting their nutrients from mama cow, right? They're self-sustaining, and they're usually around 600 to 700 pounds in size. So at that point, from when they come to us at 600 to 700 pounds, we're typically carrying them to about 1,300 pounds. And they're pretty consistently putting on between 90 and 100 pounds a month. And as they do that, there's some of the interesting things is when you think about the feed conversion ratio, right? So for every 6 pounds of feed they eat, they're retaining 1 pound of weight, and they're eating 2 pounds of their 2% of their body weight every single day, which is kind of wild to think about when you start thinking about how much do I weigh? What if I was eating 2% of my body weight every day? But, so then at the end, they're 1,300, 1,400 pounds. They're eating, 26, 30 pounds a day of grass and feed. And so they're typically with us somewhere between 6 to 8 months. And at the time they're harvested, they're typically 16 to 18 months of age. And in that kind of 1,300, sometimes up to 1,400 on a larger framed animal pound live weight range.
Yeah. When we bought the farm, we had 56 acres here in Clarksville, and in Georgia, what they call cow-calf, you typically have to have 2 acres per head, or cow-calf head, so a mama and a baby. And so when we started the business, we were like, there is no way on our little 56 acres we can have the mama cows and the babies and then raise them in pasture all the way up to that 1,300-pound target harvest weight. And so we knew right off the bat for our business model that we would work with a couple of folks here in Georgia that I had the opportunity to grow up with and know their program, their breeding programs. In the Angus breed, the genetics there was what we were wanting to work with. And so I have the opportunity to now work with the folks I grew up with in the industry to go source those weaned animals. And so it's a unique thing for me to get to go out to the farm as a female, select those animals, and then bring them back here for our program. We do raise on pasture, but as Kyle mentioned, they have the opportunity to free choice select if they'd like to visit the feed trough a little bit during the day too.
Just a little supplement.
A little supplement, yeah.
That's really cool, but I'm curious. It's a little different than a lot of businesses. When you do a startup business, the number one thing you want to do is make a sale.
Right.
And so a lot of businesses, they make their product, they create their product, however they do it, and they sell it the first month or something like that. So what are the challenges of you can't speed up the process of growing a cow?
That's right.
They've got to eat what you just described. So what was that like, rewinding to we've started this business, but now we really have to wait for the herd to mature?
Yeah, and that was one of the biggest hurdles, was to be able to get to a point where we can be harvesting cattle 12 months out of the year, because it could be frustrating for customers or potential customers who they might come, they order, they love it, and then they come back and they're like, well, what, you're sold out? And it's like, yes, we are sold out, but we're gonna have some more that are ready in 4 months. That can be a point of friction for a customer, right? They just got to know you, they like you, they trust you, they enjoy the meat, and they want more. And so it took some trust from our customers. It took some education of our customer base, particularly at the beginning, of saying, hey, look, we don't want to compromise our process. And in order for us to be able to bring you the best, we have to wait. This is why it takes time. This is what the process looks like. And then eventually over the years, we grew to a point where we can be starting groups of calves throughout the year that allows us to be able to harvest 12 months out of the year. But that certainly took a while, and it took a lot of trust from our customers to hang with us, particularly through those early years where it was a more
Every couple of
uneven
months.
inventory throughout the year.
So what do you do to differentiate yourselves? Because I know there's definitely more of an emphasis. People are paying attention to what they eat more than they used to, I feel like. But then there's also other people in the marketplace and Wagyu and certain things. So what do y'all do specifically to stand out?
I think for us from the beginning, and just marrying our backgrounds, even our name, our brand, and the large X represents crossbred and livestock. And we truly are a cross of our backgrounds and our upbringings. And I've always been passionate about, again, connecting people to their food. What is the story behind the food? And for full circle for us, and what makes us, or what I believe makes us a little bit different, is the hands-on approach we have, and when we get that meat to your freezer or you get it on your grill, we are here to also educate you, provide the resources to make sure that meal is complete if you need that recipe. It's no secret that the number one, or at least I don't think it's a secret, the number one product that comes from a beef animal is ground beef. Well, there's only so many hamburgers and tacos folks can make, and so helping people become creative in their kitchens, make those memories with their family, that's something we love to do. We want to help be that memory on the dinner plate, and so bringing that aspect off the farm to your freezer is something we've been able to create here at TeXga.
Yeah, and making sure people, to your point, making sure people are really confident in the kitchen, setting them up for success with recipes, with inspiration, but then, also making it easier to be able to source local proteins, because, the easy thing is to pick something up at the grocery store when you're already there, right? That's the easier thing. And so we wanted to try to remove as much friction from the process as possible. Build out the website, be able to ship, be able to allow for local pickups, and really try to provide as many options as possible for folks to be able to get their hands on local proteins, because we don't want it to be as challenging. We don't want people to have to drive to, all the way out or have to deal with the friction that's sometimes associated with being able to source local. We want to be able to make it easier for folks.
If you want to drive 2 hours to the farm, we'd love to have you. And we do see a lot of customers on Saturday. They make it their family's outing. They place an order online and come see us. But if you want us to ship, whether you live a mile down the road or you live 3 hours away, we can do that too.
That's great. So I know that took some work to expand too, but speaking of, Kyle referenced friction.
Yeah.
So what's it like working together? Both of you are out here, been doing this for 5 years now. The two of you, what's that like on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, what's that like?
We have separate offices for a reason. I think some of our best friends still laugh and think it's crazy that I left full-time work and now we work together. But it's rare that we do anything apart. I think the big thing with any marriage, any friendship, any business partnership, wherever you are, is communication. Some days we're really good at it, and some days we are not. I think our employees would also agree with that. But we work on it and we try to improve. But as far as planning, we always, just like anybody, you sit down, what's your business plan? Let's forecast 6, 12, 18 months. These harvest slots, working with another business to even get the meat to the freezer and to our customers' tables. We have processors that we work with, and we dream with them, and also making sure that they have the capacity to serve our growing business. And so the open lines of communications can either be very good or cause that friction.
Yeah. Well, and I think, too, it's one of those things where it always just kind of floats in and out. Like, it might be 7:30 or we might be laying in bed at night, and one of us might have an idea about, hey, what if we did this, Christmas in July thing, or whatever the case may be. And sometimes it's like, oh yeah, and then we start talking about it, or sometimes it's like, put a pin in that. I got to turn my business brain off. Let's talk about it in the morning. But I think that at the end of the day, we both bring very unique skill sets to the table, and I don't think either of us I know neither of us would be able to do it on our own.
Without the other, yeah.
And so ultimately we do have kind of complementary skill sets, and that's what allows it to be able to work.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, not being able to turn it off a lot of times. I mean, that's as the nature of a small business owner and entrepreneur. I certainly feel that way. You really can never turn it off. You have to separate the family time and your off time and all those things. But a lot of people think they want to be an entrepreneur. A lot of people want to own their small business. Right. But it's hard. What would you say is the best advice you could give somebody looking to start their own business?
Well, we tell folks interested in farming, whether they're 20 years old or 60 years old, particularly in the agriculture world of small businesses, if you can have a day job and keep getting everything lined up, that's the number one advice we always try to give folks, particularly, again, in the ag sector. But dreaming big and jump is you don't, a parachute is nice, and that's the part of the having the day job while you can set your foundation, so to speak. But it's worth it when you do jump.
I think for me, I think it's twofold. One is I think that you have to be really, really clear on who is your ideal customer, because you have to be able to figure out who is your ideal customer and how can I consistently be able to reach them, right? You can have the best product in the world, but if you don't know who your ideal customer is to use it, and if you can't reach them in a predictable way through various marketing channels, you don't have a business. You have a warehouse or you have a freezer full of meat. You don't have a business because you don't have any customers yet. But to the idea of, being built for entrepreneurship, it's certainly not for everybody. Ultimately the pressure of your name being on the door, and ultimately signing the front of the checks and not the back. I mean, that's a real thing. And I think I would encourage folks to really think about, like, hey, am I okay with that? Am I okay with the uncertainty? Because if you are built for it, there's nothing better. And there's nothing more satisfying than being able to work to build something. But if you're not able to wrestle with some of those things, I can't imagine, if you're someone who's more comfortable and who's going to thrive in more of a traditional workplace, W-2s, and being able to have that consistency. If you find yourself in a small business starting your own thing, and I can't imagine the anxiety someone would feel when they think they might be built for it, but maybe they're going to be way more productive and more satisfied and more successful as the number 11 or number 12 person at another growing business, right?
So now that you've done it, what piece of advice would you go back and give yourselves? You're about to leave those jobs, you're about to start this. What's something that you wish you would have known?
Kyle?
Build the walk-in freezer sooner.
There you go.
That was one of those really big kind of turning points when we built the walk-in freezer and graduated out of a variety of chest freezers. That was a very big turning point because it allowed us to be able to maintain more backstock and really be able to smooth out some of those inventory challenges. Because yes, we've been able to smooth out the live animal side of having cattle ready throughout the year, but if we don't have the freezer capacity to be able to store that product, then we're stuck, right? And so being able to do that really unlocked a lot of efficiencies, and it's one of those things where once we built it, I was like, oh my gosh, how in the world did we ever function without the walk-in freezers?
I think too, for me, is I do a lot of the customer service aspect of the business, and it's okay to say no. It is your business, and you can say no politely. And when we first started, kind of rubbing those rocks together, hoping it turns into something green, right? And I was taking meat to people and meeting people with places, and that was great. It got us our first customers and so forth, but then we started having a family, and I couldn't drive an hour and a half to have this freezer loaded up to go take people their steaks and their ground beef. And when it was okay to say, no, we're going to change, we're going to shift a little bit, and you can come to us, or we now ship. And if we lost customers, that's okay too. I hate to see people go, but being okay with that personally and internally within our small team here, and working through that so that we can better serve folks now. And that was hard for me to learn and adjust, but to tell myself it's going to be okay. You can say no and still be kind. And that's always been important to me is, how do we wear a smile but be genuine? And I truly do mean it. Hopefully we get better at it every day, right?
Well, that's really good to hear you say that, honestly, because that's something I struggle with in Meathead too. It's, you're in this retail business and you want every customer to give you the quote unquote 5-star review.
Right.
And I struggle with that too, is how do you tell somebody no when you just simply can't accommodate something? And that it's hard. And figuring out that is okay is very difficult. and something we wrestle with at our company too.
And to build off of what Caroline said too, that idea of what got us or what gets any small business from A to B can look very different from what gets you from B to C. You know, those systems and those processes and the way that you're going about things, you have to be self-aware enough to say like, hey, this worked great to get us to this point. All of these systems break if we try to get to this point. We need to be able to think about, you know, different efficiencies. How can we fulfill orders? What are some different things that we need to do that will allow us to grow past this point? And that's, you know, that's something that we're always thinking about. Yes, this works today, but does it work when we grow to X? And trying to be thinking about that.
One more thing I tell myself is that to look for opportunities to diversify, and if that door opens, to not just walk by it. We had the opportunity to work with another local farmer to bring TeXga pork to our customer base. He's 6 miles from our driveway, and I thought customers would say, "No, it's not raised right here on your little farm," but we were out of the space, so we contacted our customer base and said, "It's grown 6 miles from here. We follow the same farming practices. We agree on how the animals are raised and the animal welfare, how they're treated. That's really important to us." And we came to that agreement, and it allowed us to expand to a second protein. I think when we first started, I thought, no, we got to do it all here under one roof. But diversifying looks different for everybody's business. But if you don't take the chance to do it and walk by those open doors, that could be a mistake too. So that's been a really unique opportunity for us to expand to that second protein.
So speaking of that, what are the long-term goals for y'all and the long-term goals of TeXga? Where do you want to see it go?
This changes every day, it seems like. I say that laughing. Lots of opportunity. It's been a long time ago since there were just 12 head of cattle on the farm here.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, for us, it's thinking about managing growth, right? What's responsible growth? How do we make sure we're able to, you know, continue to do this in a way that's sustainable and, you know, make sure that some of those systems don't break, right? You know, so ultimately, to Caroline's point, you know, that first year, it was the dirty dozen or the 12 disciples. You know, by the end of the year this year, we'll harvest a little over 400 head of beef, and, you know,
On 3 farms.
yes, across not that's not all, it's just right here on our 56 acres right here in Clarksville, but yeah, that's something that we're overwhelmed by how the community and our customers have received that, and how they've supported us, and it's really, really humbling, and as we look ahead, we do want to continue to meet the need of folks who want to seek out local proteins. It's hard to put a number on where that ceiling is, but we're really grateful that folks continue to want to stock their freezers, and that more people are continuing to trust us to stock their family's freezer. And, you know, it's a responsibility we take really seriously, and we're really humbled by it.
Yeah.
Well, I know you take a lot of pride in the local product. I know you also take a lot of pride in the local community, giving back to the schools and the technical colleges and the colleges and everything. And we've even got a couple of interns here today.
Yes.
That work with y'all. And what would you say to the young people, to your interns that are trying to find their way, maybe in the agricultural business, because it is a hard business. You know, I'm originally from Middle Georgia, and the farms down there are really, really big. And if you didn't inherit a farm or grow up on a farm, it's hard to break in. Mm-hmm. So what advice would you give the young people that are around this area that are really interested in agriculture? Like, what can they do to find more opportunities?
As an intern, step 1, you've already taken a step to interning. To me is one of the best ways to get your feet wet. I look back when I was in college, and I worked for the Georgia Peanut Commission. I worked for Georgia 4-H. I interned in Washington for a summer with an Ag Fellowship. If you're finding your way in agriculture, whether you're working for a seed or chemical company or a small marketing firm, interning is step one into finding out what you like and what you don't like. And from there, I always love to tell people, get involved with a local organization, whether for us, we were very active in a group that's called, that Farm Bureau offers. It's called Young Farmers and Ranchers. In fact, I don't think we would have ever bought our farm if it weren't for our experience with that organization, meeting like-minded folks with similar passions. Some people may raise sweet corn, some may be in the peanut field, some people are growing watermelons, but we have same common passions that may have ideas of small businesses or that's where around those dinner table conversations where you may have that dream or where the dreams are formed for a niche market, like, ooh, what's the problem you have on your farm? How can I solve it? I feel like that's where a lot of those conversations happen for us early on. We're in those internships or in getting involved in those organizations. So something that we try to do for the folks that work for us is making sure those opportunities are available to go to those conferences, get involved in those agricultural organizations that were so important to us when we started out in our career, even career before us owning this farm. And so that's always my big piece of advice is to, obviously, if you've already taken that step to intern, check, but then keep looking for those opportunities elsewhere and getting plugged into personal development never stops and seek out those places to learn.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things Caroline said is one of the biggest benefits of interning is figuring out what you don't want to do, because you get the opportunity to dip your toe in, spend some time, peek behind the curtain. And I'll think back to my personal experience. I interned with a commercial real estate firm in college over the summer. And I enjoyed the work, but I also realized I could not wear a suit and tie every day. Just can't do it. And so, I learned a lot, and I learned that wasn't the career for me. But when you are interning, when you are surrounding yourself with like-minded folks who are kind of in a similar seasonal life, younger folks who want to find their place in the ag industry, I really think surrounding yourself with those people is so important. And also, ask questions and put yourself out there, because, by and large, producers and folks in the ag industry are encouraged by younger people who want to stay in the industry or join the industry, right? You hear all the time about, how the average age of the American farmer is climbing higher and higher and higher because there's not a substantial influx of, younger folks into the industry. And so, I know for us, we are encouraged when young folks want to intern or learn or ask questions, or, folks who are at the College of Ag at UGA or at ABAC who reach out for a class project and have some questions and want to pick our brain. We find that encouraging. And so I would encourage folks to, ask questions, reach out to folks who are doing the thing that you want to be doing, and learn as much as you can.
So I think we've covered what my next question is going to be in a little bit. But do you think now where you are, you've got a successful business, a growing business, people in the community value it, they desire it, they want it, and support it, which is great. And you're going to continue it. But do you think where you are now, was it a product of where you were in your lives, of y'all getting married and it came born out of that with similar interest? Or do you think this was something that was in your core from the beginning, that you knew that you were destined to do something like this?
I have always dreamed of being in the beef industry, and I have to include pork now since we have that product too, but I have always dreamed of raising cattle. When I met Kyle and I knew we were going the distance, I figured I'd work in agriculture, wasn't sure he'd work in agriculture, and I was okay with that. I didn't know where we'd be. I had no idea we'd be back in North Georgia. I'm glad. Proud North Georgian and glad to be raising our two little boys here now. We miss Texas, but Texas is a part of our lives every day too. But I tell people all the time, God had this farm for us, and that is no joke. I wish everyone watching could drive by, but where we are sitting today, this farm was foreclosed for 4 years. Anybody could have bought it. Why it was being held for us, I have no idea. And for that reason, and in the marriage of our backgrounds, in being in this business daily, I think it was in both of our cores from the very beginning. We maybe not knew that when we met in 2012, but I think this is exactly how God wired us, and He held this place for us until we had the opportunity to purchase it.
And now it's our job to just be a good steward of it, and continue to, treat people well, and ultimately, when we're thinking about, I would say that growing up, I never had the idea of being able to farm or farm full time on my radar, but I do think from an early age it was evident to me that I was built to be able to do my own thing and be able to start and build a small business, and that I think was absolutely in me, and I think I noticed that at a late high school, early college, that I had that sense.
Yeah.
But for it to be this, I can't say that I had that vision of that early. But now at this point, I couldn't imagine it any other way.
I will never forget Kyle's grandmother visiting from Louisiana, and we had just purchased our tractor, and she just kind of laughed really hard and was like, what is he doing? And I mean, I don't think we had beef in the freezer yet, but this is very early, getting the pastures back to how they need to be, clearing some spaces and stuff. And I think it blew the Lewallen family away a little bit, but Kyle's granddaddy actually was in the agriculture industry and poultry, so it has come full circle, I think, for both of our families, which is really cool.
That is cool. If you could sit down and grill a steak, a TeXga steak, over some meathead charcoal,
Yes.
and have a glass of wine or maybe a beer with anybody in the world, anybody in this industry, maybe a mentor, maybe an idol, who would that be?
For me, because I grew up in the industry, and agriculture has always been in my family's dinner table conversations, but I have two heroes in the industry. And one, his name's Fred Greer, former banker, lives in Mansfield, Georgia, a good small little town that you blink, you miss it. But Mr. Fred actually came up here and drove this property with my dad and I and Kyle and another family friend. I think we had finally closed on it, but it was important for me for Mr. Fred to come see it. Mr. Fred, y'all don't know Mr. Fred, Kyle does, but special family friend, ag hero to me. In fact, if you were to come have that steak at our house, our dinner table, the wood is from his farm. And my daddy planed it, and that's very special for us, built that table. But I have one more ag hero, again, he's special to me, but Mr. John Calloway is very big in the Georgia beef industry. And Mr. Fred actually has come and had that TeXga steak at our dinner table, and I'm still waiting on Mr. John. But those are two ag heroes to me that have really poured into my brother and I and into my mom and dad. Super special. And I'd have a filet medium.
Nice.
I'd have a medium rare ribeye, and I would share it with John Langford. So he is was a very close family friend of ours. And growing up, he was the most generous and engaged. I mean, he might as well have been family. I mean, I certainly viewed him as family. I know Mom and Dad certainly did as well. And he succumbed to cancer junior year of high school. But what I know is I think often about, he built companies. He was very entrepreneurially minded. And I think he would so enjoy learning about what we've built and what we're building now. And I would just love the opportunity to have been able to ask him questions and be able to gotten to know that part of him. You know, after you look back and you start to understand all the things that he did in his business life. To me, he was just Papa John, right? He loved me. He was there. He was always there. He showed up. He was involved. But now, you know, in this season of life, it would have been so cool to be able to have gotten his insight on things and been able to have learned more from him in this season of life. So that's who I would love to share the steak with.
Well, I know they would all be very proud of you and love to come share those steaks with you. But we certainly appreciate y'all taking the time to be here today and talk with us and get to learn a little more about TeXga. This has been fun for me, and we love to support y'all's product. And tell everybody where they can go find you on all the social media channels.
Sure, you can visit Instagram and Facebook, TeXga Farms, or at TeXga Farms, I guess I should say, and also our website, TeXgaFarms.com.
That's right.
And everybody can order from the website, right?
That's right,
That's
you
right.
can.
All right. Well, everybody follow TeXga Farms and also follow Meathead Charcoal, and we hope you enjoyed this.